So we're back. We have to try at least to stay within Jerry Austin's rules of finishing the functions by 9. We're not going to make it tonight, Jerry, I'm afraid, but we'll be close. The final event of the evening is to award our Award for Clinical Excellence, the Brian McGovern Award, and I'd like to start this part of the evening by acknowledging some of Brian's family. We first have Dr. Ann Jennings, Brian's wife, his daughter Katrina, and his mother Josephine, who came from Dublin to be here with us for the dinner tonight. If you could please stand. Stand up, guys. So Brian was my good friend. I know he was good friends with many of us here tonight. I took care of a lot of patients with Brian, and he had a great blend of intellect, dedication, good nature, and good humor. And as smart as an accomplished doctor as he was, he always managed to deflect praise and attention away in some way, and was able always to make other people feel important and befriended, whether you were his colleague or his friend or his patient. After he was taken from us 3 years ago, we decided to create this award in his memory to honor physicians who emulate the qualities that he personified. We don't want to lose sight of the fact, as we often think, that with all the advances in medicine and technology, it's the way we treat our patients and each other that ultimately set us apart and make the life of clinical medicine so rewarding. In that spirit, I'm pleased to present the recipients of the award for this year. We had a great response once again with nominations, and I'd particularly like to note, I know Jeanette Ives Erickson is here tonight. We had many nominations from patient care services, from the nurses nominating doctors. There were 190 nomination letters in all for 111 clinicians. We've winnowed that down to 4 this evening, and we thought at the last dinner we developed what I thought was a nice tradition, which was to have physician colleagues announce each award winner by reading from some of the nomination letters. And we're going to start with a great MGH doc who actually won one of these awards the first go-around. John Godine is going to come up and read the first letter.
Well, I'm delighted that this physician is one of the recipients of the Brian McGovern Clinical Excellence Award, and honored that Torch was kind enough to give me the opportunity to read some selections from 3 of the nomination letters about her. So she has shown unwavering commitment to what she holds as closest and dearest to her heart, the care of patients, whatever it takes, whenever it must be done, to the highest degree possible. She combines profound medical knowledge with deep respect, affection, and compassion for her patients and her colleagues in a manner that makes her the most gifted caregiver I have ever known. Here is but one example. In caring for an African woman deprived of sight and hearing by an HIV-associated infection of the central nervous system, she sustained a daily dialogue for months on end by spelling messages on the patient's palm. It is a true honor to work with her as a colleague, and I can think of no one more fitting to the memory of Brian McGovern than to honor all the things she does here every working day in his name. This remarkable physician's professional life is balanced by innumerable rich relationships with family and friends who literally span the globe, Moreover, the subtlety of her gourmet palate is almost as great as that of her differential diagnoses. It gives me great pleasure to announce that Nestle Bascos is a recipient of the 2006 Brian McGovern Clinical Excellence Award.
If you could pose for a picture of it and stay up here for the I'd like to ask Jay Leffler, the Chief of Radiation Oncology, to come up and describe our second McGovern Award recipient.
Thank you, Torts. He is considered the go-to person, both nationally and internationally, when difficult cranial base and paraspinal tumors need to be treated with precision, high-dose radiation. He invokes a multidisciplinary approach to each patient's overall plan, from picking the appropriate expert surgeon and recommending himself the appropriate surgical technique, to the point of making certain that an out-of-town patient is met at the airport and has a place to stay in Boston. It is often said by our staff that if they needed radiation, they would want to be treated by him. He is enormously gentle, particularly with his young patients. I have watched a child run to him with great glee and jump into his arms. And I have seen him spend time in the healing garden with a 9-year-old girl who could no longer be treated and had no further options. He is extraordinarily humble and modest. No one but his working colleagues and referral physicians are aware of his hidden talents. It is truly my great pleasure to announce that my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Norbert Liebsch, is a recipient of the 2006 Brian McGovern Clinical Excellence Award.
Our next awardee will be described by Jeanette Ives Erickson. Where are you? Oh, there she is.
I am thrilled to have the opportunity to read from the letters nominating this physician for the Brian McGovern Clinical Excellence Award. And I quote, "She is a doctor's doctor. She is so competent and so caring that I entrusted her with my future when I was pregnant with twin daughters. That's high praise from one obstetrician to another. She really cares about her patients. I've seen her eyes well up in tears as she relates a tragedy that befell a patient. I've seen her spend time, endless time, with patients and their families as they struggle to make difficult, heart-wrenching decisions. She remains calm, composed, and determined at the time of a crisis, always thinking clearly, always putting the patient's needs first. It is with great joy that I ask Laura Riley to come up here and receive the 2006 Brian McGovern Clinical Excellence Award.
You ready, Gus? Next one, Gus Vlahakis, my friend and colleague, will describe our fourth McGovern Award recipient.
Thanks, George. It is a pleasure to read some of the comments made about this individual. He is, just like Brian McGovern was, always here and always ready to serve the patient's best interests. He has become the go-to individual for complex patients and is the person to whom many of us send members of our families. His compassion, his attention to detail, and his complete devotion to the patient is truly exemplary. He lives and breathes to take care of his patients. His knowledge is limitless and his dedication unsurpassed. He is the classic doc. His patients adore him. His longitudinal follow-up is superb, and his clinical skills and work ethic are the stuff of legends. He is a calming and rational force. When I see him strolling down Ellison 11, I think of Brian with that ridiculous triple-headed stethoscope dangling from his neck. I think of the reverential tone Brian used when speaking of his patients' family's concerns. He ably carries on Brian McGovern's tradition. From behind the Ellison 11 door stepped a man with polished wingtips, wearing a suit drooping from a day's demands and a shirt nicely starched, but many hours ago. He looked like any other doctor. What distinguished him from the others was his warm smile. He encouraged an anxious 68-year-old woman to tell the long, complicated story of her disease and her life while he held her hand and listened. I am delighted and privileged to announce that Charlie Boucher is a recipient of the 2006 Brian McGovern Clinical Excellence Award. Thank you.
Congratulations to four great doctors who exemplify the spirit of MGH and the spirit of clinical excellence and the spirit of our friend Brian McGovern. This concludes the formal program. I'd like to, before we wrap up, thank particularly Nancy Gagliano and Deborah Colton for everything they did to put this evening together, with the support of Linda McKenzie, Beth LaRosa, Mary Cunningham, Carol Baker, and probably many others who I'm not wise enough to remember or mention. Please enjoy the evening. Stay as long as you want. We have a great dance band, and see you again in a year or so.